Asher Sullivan was a 10-year-old boy, known for his energetic nature and a strong sense of curiosity. He frequently explored the wooded areas and creeks surrounding his suburban neighborhood, often venturing out with his friends. Emily and Thomas Sullivan regularly reminded him to be cautious, especially after storms when water levels rose significantly in ditches and culverts. In June, a significant storm had moved through the area during the early morning, leaving behind flooded streets and swollen ditches. The sky remained overcast, but the rain had stopped. Asher, excited by the dramatic change in the environment, asked his mother if he could go outside. Emily, after a moment's hesitation, agreed but warned him to stay close and avoid any areas with rapidly moving water. By the afternoon, Asher had gathered with a few friends and they rode their bikes through the neighborhood to see the effects of the storm. They followed familiar routes, stopping at puddles to raise sticks and investigate displaced worms. As they continued, they reached a large concrete storm drain at the edge of the neighborhood. Designed to handle increased water volumes during storms, the drain was now carrying a significant amount of runoff at a high speed. Asher approached the edge of the culvert to get a closer look. Despite his friends expressing concern about the speed of the water, the wet and slippery concrete caused him to lose his footing as he leaned forward to reach for a piece of driftwood. Unable to regain his balance, Asher was pulled rapidly into the drain by the force of the current. The temperature inside the storm drain was estimated to be between 45 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit, significantly colder than the outside air. Exposure to water this cold can induce hypothermia within minutes, rapidly impairing motor functions and leading to unconsciousness. The current was moving at an estimated speed of 12 to 15 miles per hour, fast enough to carry debris and cause severe impact injuries. Asher was pushed rapidly through the network of underground pipes. The confined space amplified the force of the water, propelling him against concrete walls and metal joints. During this time, he sustained multiple contusions and abrasions to his arms, legs, and torso from collisions with the walls and debris. The combination of impacts, cold water, and restricted space left him unable to resist the current or find an air pocket. Emergency services were alerted within minutes by a local resident contacted by one of Asher's friends. Firefighters, paramedics, and law enforcement responded promptly, coordinating efforts to locate Asher based on drainage maps. Standard rescue protocols for confined water spaces were followed, including the use of thermal imaging and search cameras inserted through manholes to scan for movement. Due to the speed of the water in the confined space, divers were not deployed immediately, as the risk of entrapment was deemed too high. Instead, rescuers focused on opening manholes at strategic points along the drainage path to reduce water pressure and allow visibility for cameras. Firefighters deployed ropes and used pole-mounted cameras to search downstream, focusing on retention basins and grates where debris typically collected. Communication was maintained via radio, with updates relayed every few minutes to ensure no section of the drainage system was overlooked. After approximately 40 minutes, a rescue team located Asher's body at a retention basin where the drainage pipe widened and the water flow slowed. He was found caught against a metal grate designed to trap debris. Rescuers moved quickly to pull him free, carrying him to the bank where paramedics immediately began CPR, applying chest compressions, rescue breaths, and oxygen masks. These efforts continued for about 20 minutes but yielded no response. The medical examiner's report confirmed the cause of death as drowning, compounded by multiple traumatic injuries and hypothermia. The report detailed contusions and abrasions consistent with high-speed impacts against concrete walls. Lacerations on his hands and forearms indicated attempts to slow his movement or grab onto surfaces within the drain. Water found in the lungs was consistent with prolonged submersion. Hypothermia was determined to have progressed rapidly due to the low water temperature, leading to unconsciousness within an estimated 5 minutes of exposure. The extent of the injuries indicated that even if Asher had been retrieved sooner, survival would have been unlikely without immediate medical intervention. Emily and Thomas Sullivan were present at the scene during the rescue attempts, held back by officers as paramedics worked. Emily was seen making phone calls to family members, her voice breaking repeatedly, while Thomas remained silent, his fists clenched at his sides. Neighbors who had gathered nearby fell quiet as the rescue attempts continued, many whispering prayers or watching in silence. At 4:37 p.m., the lead paramedic declared Asher deceased at the scene. In the days that followed, the community responded with significant support. Neighbors organized efforts to assist the Sullivans, providing meals and coordinating with local officials to discuss potential safety improvements around storm drains, such as barriers and warning signs. A public vigil was held at the local church, drawing many community members who came to express their condolences. The Spence family farm, located near Hillsborough in County Down, Northern Ireland, was a busy place on September 15, 2012. The farm was well managed, focusing on both livestock and crop production, and the family was widely respected in the local community. Noel Spence, a 52-year-old farmer, ran the farm with the help of his two sons, Graham and Nevin, and his daughter, Emma. Nevin was also a rising star in rugby, but whenever he wasn't training or playing matches, he worked alongside his family. That Saturday morning, the Spence family began their routine chores early, taking advantage of the dry weather. One of the tasks involved the farm's slurry tank, a large underground concrete structure used to store animal waste, allowing waste to ferment safely before being spread as fertilizer. However, these tanks produce several dangerous gases, including hydrogen sulfide, methane, and carbon dioxide. Hydrogen sulfide, in particular, is extremely dangerous. It's colorless and heavier than air. It can cause rapid unconsciousness and death if inhaled in high concentrations. At lethal levels, it paralyzes the respiratory system and the sense of smell, preventing victims from detecting its presence. The tank was located inside a shed, partially covered with access through a hatch and a ladder leading down to the lower level. Due to the confined space and limited ventilation, heavier gases like hydrogen sulfide could accumulate at the bottom, forming an invisible deadly trap. The family, familiar with the risks, adhered to safety practices such as keeping the tank covered and avoiding agitation when anyone was nearby. But despite these precautions, the threat of gas release was always present. In the early afternoon, Noel decided to check the slurry levels and ensure the tank was secure. Emma, who was helping with other chores nearby, saw him heading toward the tank but thought little of it. As Noel opened the hatch and leaned over to inspect the inside, he likely disturbed a pocket of hydrogen sulfide that had been settled near the bottom. Without warning, he inhaled the gas, which acts within seconds by binding to respiratory enzymes, effectively halting cellular respiration. Disoriented and losing motor control, Noel collapsed into the tank, unable to call for help. When Noel didn't return, Graham, his eldest son, went to check on him. Seeing his father lying motionless inside, Graham instinctively climbed down the ladder to assist him, unaware of the danger. As he descended, he was exposed to the same invisible cloud of hydrogen sulfide. The gas's effects are determined by concentration. At 500 ppm, unconsciousness can occur within minutes, but at levels exceeding 1000 ppm, collapse happens with just 1 or 2 breaths. Hydrogen sulfide also paralyzes the sense of smell at high concentrations, giving no warning before its effects take hold. Within moments, the gas paralyzed Graham's respiratory system, causing him to collapse beside his father. The slick ladder and disorientation prevented any chance of escape. The confined space of the tank, coupled with the rapid displacement of oxygen by hydrogen sulfide, left him no chance of survival. Nevin, who had been working nearby, heard or saw something wrong and rushed to the shed. The sight of his father and brother lying responsive inside the tank was a sudden, overwhelming shock. Driven by instinct, Nevin immediately went down the ladder without considering the risk. Like his father and brother, he was exposed to the lethal concentration of gas before he could understand the danger. Within seconds, Nevin too collapsed, lying alongside his father and brother. Emma arrived moments later, alarmed by the silence and the open hatch. Seeing her father and brothers motionless inside the tank was beyond comprehension. She hesitated at the edge, instinctively holding her breath as she shouted for help. A single breath of hydrogen sulfide could have been fatal, but Emma's hesitation and a neighbor's timely intervention likely saved her life. Local emergency services were contacted immediately, and neighbors, hearing the commotion, rushed to assist. One neighbor, familiar with the dangers of slurry tanks, pulled Emma back, preventing her from attempting a rescue herself. Emergency response teams equipped with breathing apparatus arrived quickly. Firefighters in full protective gear descended into the tank to recover the bodies of Noel, Graham, and Nevin. But even with protective equipment, the recovery was hazardous due to lingering toxic gases in the confined space. Paramedics attempted resuscitation efforts on site, but the concentration of hydrogen sulfide and the time that had passed left no chance of survival. Autopsy results later confirmed the cause of death as hydrogen sulfide poisoning, compounded by oxygen displacement and the confined space of the tank. Commerce Township, Michigan is a quiet suburban area northwest of Detroit, known for its mix of residential neighborhoods and small businesses. In July 2015, the summer heat had settled heavily over the town, making the air thick and the afternoons long. A tool and die shop located on a nondescriptive industrial road in the township was no exception. The shop, co-owned by a 63-year-old woman from West Bloomfield Township, had been part of the local business fabric for years. The business had a motorized parking lot gate, a substantial steel structure about 7 feet tall that slid open and closed along a fixed track. Designed to prioritize security, the gate was equipped with an electric motor and a chain drive mechanism, but lacked modern safety features such as motion sensors and an automatic reversal system. These safeguards, now standard in commercial gates, can detect obstacles and hold or reverse the gate if resistance is detected, but without these systems, the gate's motor was programmed to complete its cycle once initiated, regardless of obstructions. Over the years, employees had occasionally reported issues with the gate's alignment and timing, noting that it sometimes moved unevenly or paused mid-motion. These irregularities were attributed to wear and tear expected of equipment used daily. Maintenance on the gate had been discussed, but was repeatedly deferred, as the disruptions seemed minor and business priorities took precedence. Inside the control box, the wiring showed visible signs of aging, such as exposed copper and brittle insulation, likely exacerbated by temperature fluctuations. The woman stayed past closing to finish paperwork, a habit she had developed to avoid distractions during busier hours. By the time she wrapped up, the parking lot was empty. She moved her car, a Cadillac Escalade, intending to lock the gate manually on her way out. Leaving the engine running to keep the air conditioning on, she stepped out and approached the gate's control box, mounted at chest height. She inserted the key, turned it, and the motor engaged with a familiar hum. As the gate began to slide open, a sudden jolt shuddered through its frame, causing it to pause briefly. Misalignments had been reported before, but these interruptions were usually brief and not seen as a cause for alarm. The chain drive mechanism responsible for transferring power from the motor to the gate had several loose links that could cause sudden starts or stops if they snagged. As the gate resumed its motion abruptly, the woman moved closer to inspect the lower track for obstructions, inadvertently passing between the gate and the fence. With no sensors to detect her presence, the gate continued to slide shut. The motor, designed to handle high torque for security purposes, moved the heavy steel frame with considerable force. As the gate advanced, the woman was caught between the moving metal and the fixed chain link fence. In an instant, the gap closed, pinning her against the fence. The pressure exerted by the gate was immense, capable of applying hundreds of pounds of force. Designed without sensitivity to resistance, the gate's motor continued its cycle uninterrupted. As the gate moved, the force compressed her chest, restricting her ability to breathe and causing severe internal trauma. Bruising and fractures occurred immediately. Ribs cracked under the pressure, and the chest cavity was compressed to a fatal degree. Without an emergency stop mechanism within reach, the gate completed its motion, trapping her fully against the fence. Like I said before, the parking lot was empty, and with the business closed, no one was nearby to hear or respond immediately. The force applied by the gate caused compressive asphyxiation, preventing her lungs from expanding. Within moments, the combination of mechanical force and restricted airflow led to death by asphyxiation. It was nearly 30 minutes before a delivery driver passing by noticed the headlights of the idling Escalade and stopped to investigate. Upon approaching, he saw the partially closed gate, and through the chain link fence, the woman's figure pinned motionless. Emergency services were called immediately. Firefighters arrived swiftly, using hydraulic tools to pry the gate open. Paramedics attempted resuscitation, but the lack of oxygen and the extensive trauma made recovery impossible. The medical examiner's report concluded the cause of death as comprehensive asphyxiation, compounded by blunt force trauma to the chest and abdomen. The investigation revealed that the gate's control system was outdated and lacked essential safety mechanisms. Maintenance records indicated that the motor and track had not been serviced recently, and the misalignment issue reported by employees had not been fully addressed. Following the incident, local authorities mandated inspections of similar gates across the area, urging businesses to install updated safety features, including motion sensors and emergency stop functions. Workplace safety inspectors cited the incident as a preventable tragedy, emphasizing the risks posed by older equipment without modern safeguards. The USS Iwo Jima was an amphibious assault ship in service with the United States Navy, designed to transport and deploy Marines via helicopters and landing craft. On October 30th, 1990, the ship was docked in Manama, Bahrain, undergoing routine maintenance and repairs following a deployment in the Persian Gulf. The maintenance focused heavily on the steam propulsion system, a critical component for the ship's movement and power generation. The engineering team had been working extended shifts, addressing a backlog of maintenance tasks, including a routine inspection and pressure test of the steam propulsion system's main valves and pipes. The ship's steam system operated under high pressures, with superheated steam reaching temperatures above 900 degrees Fahrenheit and pressures exceeding 600 pounds per square inch. Any fault in this system posed severe risks, requiring careful attention to safety protocols and regular inspections of all components, including gaskets, valves, and pressure relief systems. On that day, the engineering crew reported fluctuating pressure readings on a primary steam line feeding one of the ship's boilers. These readings suggested a potential blockage or malfunctioning valve. Following standard protocol, the engineers conducted diagnostic tests, including manual adjustments to certain valves to balance the steam pressure. However, due to time constraints and the urgency of getting the ship fully operational, not all recommended inspections were completely thorough. The boiler room, located deep within the ship, was a confined, multi-level compartment accessible through narrow passageways and hatches. It was densely packed with pipes, control panels, and steam turbines. Air circulation was limited, and the ventilation systems were not designed to handle sudden surges in temperature. Sailors working in this environment wore standard flame-resistant coveralls and gloves, but had limited protection against high-pressure steam or extreme heat. Several sailors in the boiler room reported unusual vibrations in the steam lines. Such vibrations can indicate a range of problems, including water hammer, a phenomenon caused by condensed steam creating powerful pressure surges. This condition can severely stress gaskets and valves, especially if they are already weakened by wear or inadequate maintenance. The lead machinist's mate, a petty officer with over a decade of experience, ordered a manual inspection of a steam valve that was showing irregular readings. This valve was a high-pressure isolation valve that controlled the flow of superheated steam from the boilers to the turbines. Two junior machinists were assigned to inspect and, if necessary, manually adjust the valve. They proceeded with caution. During the inspection, the vibration in the steam line intensified, causing bolts on a nearby flange to rattle audibly. Moments later, a loud metallic crack signaled a catastrophic failure in the valve's integrity. A gasket on the steam valve, likely compromised by age and insufficient maintenance, ruptured completely, causing an uncontrolled release of superheated steam directly into the boiler room. Superheated steam is lethal due to its invisibility in extreme temperature. Sailors near the valve had no warning before being enveloped. Steam caused instant third-degree burns, destroying nerve endings and muscle tissue in less than a second. Inhalation of the superheated vapor seared respiratory passages and lung tissue, causing immediate respiratory failure. The force of the steam release generated a shockwave that knocked sailors off their feet, causing fractures and blunt force trauma. Metal panels and grates were blown from their mountings, further compounding the danger. Temperatures in parts of the boiler room soared to over 300 degrees Fahrenheit within seconds, causing fatal hypothermia and making metal surfaces too hot to touch. The emergency shutoff valves, designed to isolate sections of the steam system in case of a rupture, failed to close completely, allowing steam to continue venting into the compartment. Emergency ventilation systems designed to handle typical operating heat were overwhelmed almost immediately. Those who were not killed instantly were unable to escape due to the extreme heat, inhalation injuries, and disorientation caused by the pressure wave. A sailor positioned at a control panel managed to trigger the emergency alarm before collapsing. The alarm activated firefighting and damage control teams stationed on the main deck. Within minutes, firefighters equipped with thermal suits and self-containing breathing apparatus entered the boiler room. However, the residual heat and lingering steam made recovery operations extremely hazardous. Rescue efforts were slowed by the need to vent the boiler room to prevent further casualties among the rescue teams. The first bodies recovered displayed signs of severe thermal injuries. The skin was charred and slowed away at the lightest touch, and uniforms had been fused to flesh by the heat. Medical personnel prepared for typical shipboard injuries, such as lacerations and fractures, were overwhelmed by the extent and severity of the burns. CPR was attempted but proved ineffective due to the extensive internal injuries caused by inhaling superheated steam. Autopsies confirmed that the primary causes of death were thermal burns covering 90% or more of the body's surface area and acute respiratory failure due to scalding of lung tissue. Secondary injuries included skull fractures and broken limbs caused by the pressure wave and falls during escape attempts. Blood tests also detected carbon monoxide, indicating that insulation or other materials had been scorched, releasing toxic gases into the boiler room. In total, 10 sailors lost their lives, some instantly from direct exposure to the steam, others due to inhalation injuries, heat exhaustion, or being trapped in the rapidly rising temperatures with no way to escape. The subsequent investigation, led by the Naval Safety Center, determined that the steam valve failure was primarily due to a degraded gasket that had not been replaced during previous maintenance cycles. Records indicated that several maintenance tasks had been marked as completed despite evidence to the contrary. In response to the findings, the Navy implemented new protocols requiring more frequent inspections of steam valves and gaskets. The boiler room was completely rebuilt, with updated safety features and redundant pressure relief systems designed to prevent similar incidents.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.